Welcome back to our channel. Today, I want to share with you a story, not just about success, but about rediscovery. It's a story of a man who had everything, but found what truly mattered in the most unexpected place. Take a deep breath, and let's begin. Chicago, late October. The wind had already turned cold, slipping through alleyways and brushing against the windows of glass towers downtown. On the 30th floor of one of those towers, David Moore stood by his office window, a cold cup of coffee in his hand. Below, the city glowed with ambition. But in David's eyes, there was only silence. At 52, David had reached the mountaintop. A well-known tech CEO, a leader with wealth, power, and a spotless reputation. A loving family, a home that overlooked Lake Michigan. People called him the Midwest's tech king. But beneath the sharp suits and smiling photos, David felt hollow. Every day was a rinse and repeat of meetings, deals, and dinner alone. He didn't know exactly when it happened, only that the joy had gone quiet. Success no longer sparked anything in him. One gray Tuesday afternoon, after a lifeless investor meeting, David didn't go home. He took a detour. His car drifted away from the glass and steel skyline, down into South Side, an area he'd never had a reason to visit. He drove aimlessly until he noticed a small wooden sign hanging from a weathered building. Hopewell Community Center, free art classes for kids. Inside, laughter. Soft, unfiltered, and real. Through a fogged-up window, David saw a group of kids sitting on the floor, holding crayons and coloring sheets. No screens, no tablets, just paper, colors, and little hands busy creating. There was something in their eyes, a light, a spark that stopped David in his tracks. He stood there in the rain for a long time, and the next day, he came back. No one knew who he was. There were no cameras, no press, just a middle-aged man in a plain coat quietly asking if he could sit in and watch. The week after, he brought crayons, then paper, then wooden frames. He stayed up late building himself in his garage. In the smell of wood and paint, he felt something awaken. At first, he didn't speak much. He just observed. But the kids started pulling him in, asking, "Hey, mister, is this sky too purple? Can hearts be green? My mom said to draw something I love, but I don't know what that looks like." David didn't have teaching credentials. He wasn't an artist, but he had a heart that knew how to listen, and he knew what it felt like to be small and unsure. Then came Luis, 8 years old, quiet, eyes too old for his age. Luis always sat at the edge of the room. One day he handed David a drawing without saying a word. A house. No windows, no people. A blank space on the right side. David asked softly, "What's this, buddy?" Luis looked down and said, barely audible, "That's my house, but my dad doesn't live there anymore." That moment split something open in David, because once he was a Luis, a boy waiting by the door for a father who never returned, a child who learned to bury sadness under silence. That memory had been locked away for decades, but this boy's simple drawing had opened it like a flood. That night, David sat in his garage. He cried, not out of sadness, but out of something deeper. He didn't know what to call it, but he knew one thing for sure. He wanted to live differently. From then on, he changed his life. He still ran his company, but only part-time. The rest of his time he gave to the kids, to that little art class in the forgotten corner of Chicago. He created a nonprofit called Brush of Hope, raising funds to bring art education to kids who had nothing but imagination. Not to make them artists, but to give them a place to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel free. One day, a young journalist visited the class and asked him, "Why would a man like you, who had everything, choose this?" David looked out the window. Luis was laughing. A little girl was painting a green sun and a purple tree. He smiled, gently. "Because sometimes," he said, "we don't need to change the whole world. We just need to help one small soul repaint theirs." And if you ever wander down a quiet street on Chicago's South Side and see a man with silver hair crouched beside a child, tying their shoelaces or mixing colors on a paper plate, don't be surprised. It might be David Moore, a man who once stood at the top but found himself again, right there on the floor, with a crayon in hand and a child by his side. If this story moved something in you, even just a little, consider subscribing to our channel. We share stories like these, real, human, and full of quiet power. Stories to remind us that even in the rush of modern life, there's still a place for heart. Thanks for listening, and see you in the next story.